And we're live, another Generals episode. What's up, Moff?
What's going on?
My camera's not working. Spend $7,000 on a fucking setup, and I got to use the webcam. So here I am, director.
Such is life.
What's going on?
Not too much. A lot going on this week.
Yeah, there's a few things we're going to cover. People seem to like the last show. Some people didn't like our responses on the topic of religion. We'll deal with that later. There's also that gal that police officer that settled that lawsuit. She was busy banging the entire police force, and she managed to play the victim card. So we'll get to that too. I got a request here that came in a couple weeks ago, and I've just been so busy I haven't had a chance to record the response. So I want to give the guy, his answer to this. So let's start with that, if you're cool.
Let's do it.
All right, so I'll just read it out. I printed it up. I was going to do this in a car for the Entrepreneurs and Cars channel, but we'll do it here. So the guy is 42. His wife is 8 years younger. She doesn't have social media. She was always in my frame. I'm her first. When she turned 30, she got crazy about wasting time, and something happened. She started having suicidal thoughts and wanted to hit the wall with a car. Later, she confessed to me a few months earlier that when she was taking his children to kindergarten, she met a male friend from high school. Later, this friend wrote her a message, and she gave him her work number, which she had at work, so he would not text her private number. Sorry, guys, it's not going to read right because English isn't his first language. He's from a part of the world where it's not. Anyway, just bear with me. She did this so she wouldn't harass her if she didn't want to contact him. Okay, sure. He wrote her several messages to which she replied with a short yes or no. After a few days, he unexpectedly arrived at her work. Then she took a walk with him to the park nearby. Later, he invited her to his hotel for tea to reminisce about old times. She was afraid to go, but decided not to be a coward. You can see where this is going already, eh? But decided not to be a coward. She went, and she was drinking tea when they were sitting on the bed, and he suddenly kissed her. She went numb, and he pushed her onto the bed and quickly pulled down his pants. She started telling him to wait because she didn't have a condom, but he didn't stop. So it's not like it's not don't do this, period. It's like, I don't have a condom. Yeah.
Jeez.
Then she started screaming that she didn't want it. Okay, well, the story changes, and all of a sudden, and he pushed her off the bed and started laughing, saying, "What did you think you came here for?" She ran out of the hotel crying. I didn't quite believe it, but when I probed further, she told me that there had been 2 meetings. The first one was in the park after work, and then she went home. He didn't contact her for a long time, and she felt guilty for not telling me about it and was thinking about suicide. Interesting. But after a few months, he suddenly called. She was happy because she thought that she would be able to prove to me that it is possible to have male friends. He's just a friend. And that things would stop bothering me. He offered to come to her work at 9 p.m. Why would he come to her work in the evening at 9? Anyway, she came back from work and told me that she had an appointment with a gynecologist in the evening. She went and met him in the same park because it was cold, raining, and everything was closed due to COVID lockdown. He suggested they go for tea in this hotel. She was afraid to go, but went along. And then what I described above happened. She confessed to me immediately, started feeling better. She said that she had shed a stone from her head, and now she felt like a new person. Oh, so a weight is lifted from her life for telling some truth. Again, it's some truth, not all the truth. She started coming back into my frame. She started being closer to me and my family. She has 5 friends, girls whom she has been dating since childhood. I'm assuming these girlfriends of hers have been dating guys since childhood. It's the way the language isn't translating properly. And all of them are married. They all have small children just like us. Their group is very close. They write to each other constantly, inform about everything during the day, and help each other for 4 years. On her birthday, they always go away for about 3 days to a hotel in a small town where they sit, talk, drink drinks, etc. These hotels are sometimes small houses in mountain towns, larger hotels, and a swimming pool or spa. What my wife tells me, her birthday falls at the end of winter, so it's not a party season, but when she comes back, she always shows me photos of the trips. Before she's leaving me, she goes to shows me the hotel, but I don't know if it's normal and I can trust her. I don't know what they're doing there, especially when I've already described what happened some time ago. Now, I asked for some clarity. I said to him, I emailed him back and I said, what is it that you're asking me? Right?
Yeah, like, what's the question here?
What's the question, basically? He says she doesn't have any photos on the internet, never adds even one photo to social media. She has Facebook only to watch some things. But what do you think about all of this? He says, should I believe her or not? She's been fighting for our marriage for 3 years now and doesn't want to give up. She told me she wanted to accuse him of attempted rape, but she had no evidence. She says now that she was young and stupid and she got the lessons from this. She doesn't have any photos on the internet. She never adds a single photo to social media. Guy's repeating himself. I don't know what to do. I'm tired of thinking about all of this. I also don't know what I should believe when she travels with her friends. So his question basically is, what do you think about all this? Should I believe her or not? Well, you know what's funny? I was watching a edit that Velko sent me. I did this video a while ago on the Entrepreneurs in Cars channel, the three-step rocket. I don't know if you saw the one with the Norwegian cop. He was basically talking about how women use false domestic violence charges to get men out of the house. Just like stuff that I've covered before. It's in my course on divorce and all that stuff. But then he messaged me back after that video aired, and he said, I forgot to tell you one other thing about grape. And apparently 85% of the time when they have women come into the station to report a grape type of situation, they do it because they've cheated on their husband, and they use grape as like a cover so they can be dismissed or not accused or slut shamed, if you will, for making that choice prior. So I'm not going to spoil it because the video will come out on the Entrepreneurs in Cars channel soon, but basically the vast majority of the time when women state that they've been raped, they haven't. They just use it as a cover up because they had consensual intimacy with a guy and they later regret it, or somebody might have caught them or seen them and it would come to light and make them look bad to their husband or their boyfriend. So I found that interesting too. What do you think about this entire story this guy's giving here?
It doesn't sound like anything we haven't heard before. I mean, it sounds like he's a generally good guy who wants it to work. He's trying to, it's the classic case of a guy complicating his life and justifying why. He's trying to, should I believe her? Should I trust her? That question's irrelevant. It doesn't really matter because he's not getting over, he'll never get over this past stepping out, past betrayal, sneaking around with this other guy, meeting behind back, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's always going to be with him. He's not going to just wake up one day and decide, well, I believe you and I forgive you, and therefore it's going to go away. So he has to kind of decide if this is something that is worth living with and something he's going to be able to deal with for the rest of his life or the rest of his marriage or whatever it is, or if this is something that he can't and he needs to make decisions. It's like walking around with a rock in your shoe. How big is the rock? How annoying is it? How much pain can you withstand? How long can this go? Because this is his fight or flight response. This is his flight response telling him, dude, like, what are you doing? You got to go. This is not, what you signed up for. What's going on? And he's trying to find reasons to stay with it. So, I mean, look, plain and simple, like married women don't go meet up with old friends, old colleagues alone in places after dark. They don't go to their hotel rooms. They certainly don't lay and sit on the bed with them. I mean,
to reminisce about high school.
Yeah. I mean, and he didn't give a lot of background. Were they just old friends? Did they date before? All that stuff, maybe not super relevant, but the fact of the matter is, man, like, they will only be as honest as they think they have to get away with what they want to get away with. I mean, in all likelihood, far more happened than what she said. She's just saying enough to sort of pacify him, and his natural male instinct of protecting women and protecting the baby maker is kicking in, saying, oh, okay, well, she's coming clean and she's really trying, and I want to make things work. The guy sounds like he's lying to himself.
Yeah. Like like he said over here, she met a male friend from high school when she was taking the kids to kindergarten. So they're small kids, obviously, right? There should be no space in a marriage or any kind of a committed relationship where a woman keeps men from her past around. It's one of the red flags. It's red flag number
5. Or is it number 3? Number 5. I think it's
number 5. Men from her past. Men
Yeah.
from her past. It's a big red flag. Chicks that keep men from her past. Like, she had the option when dropping the kids off at kindergarten. Hi, nice to see you. Hope things are well. And then turn around 180 degrees, get in her car and drive home, or talk to him, exchange numbers, meet with him in the park after work, go to the hotel with him to have tea and reminisce, go to the room to talk further. Like, there was a lot of opportunities for her to turn around and say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm married and I love my husband, right? But she didn't. And the fact that she's telling some of these stories to me reveals that she's done a whole lot more, and somebody saw something or knows something, and she's afraid that it's going to get back to him. So she's being preemptive and telling him these stories and using the notion that he forced himself on her. He may have done that. They may have had some, consensual fun, and she just sort of changed the story. Like, her story went from, wait, we don't have a condom, to, I don't want this, right?
So I don't want to do this. Yeah.
Come on. I mean, for me, that's a massive red flag. That's a sit down conversation. Like, I mean, if you have small kids and you want to keep mom around and not lose half your shit, then it's basically, here's the line in the sand. I am going to aim your face at it. You cross this line. If you do this again, we're fucking done, right? If you're that guy, or you just end it, like whatever the case may have to be. But the fact that
she's still going on girl trips too now. I mean, it's not that stuff's not over, right? Like,
I was just
I'll never understand this fascination with guys letting their girls go on the stuff. Like, I really don't get it. I mean, how many stories do we have to tell? How many times do we have to guys call in and say, my wife went to Cancun with her girlfriends, and then a video surfaced of her getting piped by 4 dudes? Like, how many times does this have to happen? And guys have to say, oh, well, that's not me because my girl's different.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I was going to touch on that next. Is like he feels a lot of discomfort around her going out with her girlfriends. Now he tries to dismiss it as, she's going away to the hotel in a small mountain town. It's off season. Nobody's celebrating anything. There's no guys there, sort of thing. Like, I mean,
they will find a way. Chicks that want to do it will find a way to do it. I mean, look, she gave the guy her work numbers and because I didn't want him blowing up my personal. It's like, okay. Yeah, that's what it is.
No, it's really easy for women to get D if they're traveling away and, the guy's not around. So it's like, the only time that I would say that it would be okay for her to travel by herself if she's committed to, if you've taken on the risk of marriage, it's like, hey, it's an all-girls retreat, an all-girls facility. There's no men there. They're going to do some quiet meditation or some fucking shit like that for like 3 days. Fine, whatever. But if it's like girls getting together to hang out and drink and eat, and he mentioned drinking would be happening at some of these things, didn't he? Yeah, he did. Swimming pool, spa, hotel, mountain town. Okay. Like, you don't know what's going on there. And, the whole jealousy thing comes up. Oh, you're too jealous, or you're too controlling, or some shit like that. And it's like, okay, that's interesting, because it's like, jealousy is a form of mate guarding. Okay. Like, we know that. But if she's done things that have crossed your bottom line in the past, and she's doing things to potentially complicate the relationship going forward, those freedoms need to be taken away. Some people don't like, the way that's you can't constrict her. Or, yes, you can. If you're going to lead the relationship and she wants to be with you and she wants access to your resources and your love and your protection, all that sort of stuff like that. It's like, married women with husbands don't go away and do stuff like that. We talked about this last week, when these women go down to like Cancun and they're at the all-inclusive and they're at the pool bar with the chatter Tyrone, behind the fucking counter from Dominican or Jamaica or whatever happens to be, making all the drinks. The women are screaming, having a good time. That's your girl too. You let her go away to, environments and situations like that. She's going to behave the same way. There's no way around it. Like, it's the same thing with bachelorette parties. They go to these sort of we're just going to sit around. Like, okay, maybe there's 1 or 2% of the women. Like, I've had these guys on before that are male strippers, and they're like, yeah, there's always that one girl every once in a while that just sits there and is like, this is not for me. I'm not really about this. But the vast majority of them indulge. The vast majority of them step out. The vast majority of the time. So it is what it is. So you want some feedback there, buddy? The feedback is your intuition knows something's up, man. What exactly happened? She's not going to offer all the truth. She ain't going to tell you exactly what happened. She's giving you a version of the story. But like we said last week, she's only given up what she has to give up. There's stuff in your blind spot that probably went down that you don't know about and you'll never know about. So there you go.
Yeah, and take it a step further. Like, the question, should I believe her, again, is largely irrelevant. It's whether you do or not. Something, you're being told something, and you're not going to just override that intuition. I think one of the most common pitfalls that a lot of men fall into today is that we ignore, and we've talked about this before, like, we get into this habit of ignoring that intuition. You ignore that gut feeling. And a lot of guys will confuse that with, oh, I'm just being emotional or I'm just being paranoid or jealous. It's no, this is a legitimate biological response. It's literally your fight or flight. Like, you're recognizing that there's a break in the pattern. You're recognizing that something is not the way it is normally or the way that it should be. And it's telling you, hey man, something's up and you might be headed for danger here. But, men like to, for whatever reason, I guess it's the feminization of the culture. It's the, oh, you're paranoid, you're jealous, don't think with your feelings and things like that. But there is a certain line where you have to recognize, like, no, this is a very real biological response, and it would behoove more men to pay more attention to it.
Let's pivot a little bit and talk about this Tennessee police officer. Yeah.
Oh man, this is amazing. Anybody who doubts that we live in a gynocentric social order after this, I mean.
So, we talked about this a year or two ago. I don't even remember when this happened. It was a while ago. I covered it. We probably talked about it on Generals with a bunch of the other guys as well. So this Tennessee police officer, Megan Hall. So I captioned this on Twitter. I said, isn't it amazing how women playing the victim and lawyers can change the narrative around a hoe and extort $500,000 from the city? So she got fired. This chick over here on the bucking bronco, which is basically every guy in this picture over here that she spent time with. She got fired for basically being the village bicycle at the police department, because she was also doing it during work hours as well. Let me just read this here. Former Tennessee police officer who went wild with 6 officers on the job has settled her lawsuit. So she's suing the city for money because she got dismissed for $500,000. So the city's taxpayer money is paying her $500,000. Megan Hall says that she was sexually groomed by male police officers and sued the city of Laverne, whatever the hell that is. Hall allegedly hooked up with multiple colleagues, performed oral on 2 officers on the job, had a threesome with an officer and his wife, and much more. She blamed her actions on her troubled marriage, of course, why take ownership for yourself, and the police department. So no ownership for her. This all happened because of her troubled marriage and the police department. Megan wasn't looked at like a rookie cop to be trained and promoted. She was looked at as a piece of meat to be sexualized and exploited, her lawyer said. The board of mayor and aldermen voted to authorize the mayor to sign a settlement agreement between the city and former officer Megan Hall. A statement from the city said the city's insurance provider will pay a sum of $500,000 to Hall as a gross settlement, which includes court costs, attorney's fees, and expenses. Well, I don't know what to say about that, aside from I'm not too fucking surprised.
I mean, what is there to say? It's play victim, pass the blame. It's my husband's fault. It's the officer's fault. All of these people groomed. What is grooming? Grooming is a term that we would use for, like, I think older adults that would be this sort of adult figure for underage kids and wait until they turned 18. I mean, and now it's just like we turn it around. Anytime somebody, can't take responsibility for their own actions, especially sexually, it becomes, I'm a victim of grooming.
Yeah, well, she also blames her husband. And in the past, like in this article for 2023, she was talking about being in an open marriage. So this is the 2 of them. Ugh. This is her and Dork McGee over here that let it happen. Here's Tyrone, one of the first guys in the group. But yes, this is the couple over here. Apparently, it was all his fault, and the fact that the police department forced themselves on her. But do you guys buy that?
Why are women cops? I wish we could have got into more of this with Daniela this past Monday. It's like,
yeah,
why do women go into the police?
Well, she wanted an office job, that gal. If you remember, she got into law enforcement to get the office job, the cushy job, the pension, the 9 to 5 hours. Like, that's why women do it, right? Yeah. It's like they don't want to go out in the field and come home one day with a black eye and busted leg, which is potentially could happen. Sure. Right? They'd rather be in the office and have a nice, safe desk job. But I'm with you on that. Like, I've seen so many videos now. Because there's so much TV, there's people with cell phones everywhere. I've seen so many videos now of like cops that are female that are trying to arrest a guy. There was one I saw, recently where there was 2 female police officers and they're trying to get the guy in the cruiser. He's in cuffs. Yeah. He takes them both out while he's in cuffs, gets himself out of cuffs, and then steals a cop car and drives away while the female cops are on the ground, like their teeth are smashed in. Basically, it's like, why are we putting women in harm's way to do these things? Because, like in the word of equality, like what is this about? We're just hurting women.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same goes for police force. I think the same goes for the military, large in part. I think a lot of that also goes for like the fire service. I mean, it's like, look, man, I'm a pretty big dude. Like I'm about 6 foot, 220. And if I'm trapped under something, or if I'm got a broken leg in a burning house and I can't mobilize, and I see an 110-pound girl coming to try to save me from a burning building, I'm saying my last rites because I know we're both dead. There's just no way around it. So it's like, to what point are we going to stop this just, character of a society that we have, this sort of pandering to this, making people feel good? I mean, we can go on to this stuff forever, but it's not surprising at all that this is how this came out. I mean, she was embarrassed, plays the victim, passes the buck, passes accountability. I'm at least glad to hear, I didn't read this in the full article. I'm glad to, I don't know if any of the other officers lost jobs or anything like that, because that would be, the ultimate cherry on top. Not only was she the victim, but they were, they get to lose their livelihood and lose their licenses and things like that. So I'm if that didn't happen, I'm glad for that. But yeah, it just shows that you can, I mean, the internet dragged her for months on this, and she still comes out the winner. And
I know,
and there's still people that defend her too, like clearly.
I know.
So
I know. And the city's paid out the money because they don't want to deal with the lawsuit and the bullshit, and they want a clean name and they want to shut it down and make it go away. So it's like, yeah, just give
you just can't ask questions.
Insurance money pays it out, right?
You just can't ask questions anymore. Like you go back to this guy, the email request, you go back to this, anytime you're gonna, a woman can claim assault or she can claim DV or whatever it is, like we're not even allowed to ask questions. It's the ultimate it's a get out of jail free card. It's an accountability free card. It's the same thing we talked about last week, converting to Christianity. Like you're not even allowed to question it,
yeah.
Right? Because the whole crowd, whatever it is, will come for you and say, like you've got skeletons and this and that. Yeah, you can't even ask questions anymore.
So let's talk about religion and Christianity.
Let's do it. I'm hoping we can.
I did, and I want to tread around this topic with some couth, if I
of course
state that. So I did a podcast this week with this guy, Rob Kowalski, and he's a Christian polygynist now. When I talked to him the first time a year ago, he was a devout Christian, but abstinent. So he had been a man whore in his younger years, and he decided that was the wrong thing to do. He repented and stayed abstinent. Then he decided, well, this is not who I am. I'm there's nothing in the Bible that is against polygyny. So now I'm going to adopt the notion that I'm a Christian polygynist, right? Because he wants to have multiple women. And then, it's a whole complicate life. You don't justify why. Like I couldn't find anything in the Bible that said that Bible's against polygyny. Fine. So now I'm going to adopt polygyny. And that's what his videos are about. And that's what a lot of the conversation was about when I did the podcast interview with him. You guys can go look it up. So I found that very interesting. And of course, during the podcast, the notion of my faith comes up, and he's like, we need to save you, and, you should convert and all that sort of stuff. And it doesn't matter if I'm talking to a Catholic or a Christian or a Muslim. They all want to save me, and they all want me to adopt their club. Like they want me to be a spokesperson for that club. So let's talk about religion, because last week when we sort of got into it, people had some beefs. Like what was the main beef that they had with us?
A lot of it was, the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't say this. You guys are taking it out of context. Or a lot of people took issue with my definition of faith when I said, faith is the belief in something without evidence. And then people turn around and they say, well, no, that's not what the Bible's definition is. So that's what the other definition is. It's like, well, okay, like I don't care what it says in the Bible. I don't care what it says in Harry Potter. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. So this circular reasoning and circular logic of, well, the Bible says the Bible is true. Like you can't have the premise equal the conclusion, right? That's called circular reasoning and circular logic. But it's always that. It's always like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. And then it's always the pandering of, you need to be saved. We'll pray for you. You're a degenerate. You're this. And it's so funny that an entire group of people that talks about, peace and love and being together and, fellowship and brotherhood are just as nasty, if not worse, when you just don't want to go along with their little club and you don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And like I used to be a lot more like
Were you
firebrand about this
ever
kind of stuff.
subscribed to any kind of religion, like even when you were younger?
No, I talked a little bit about this on office hours, not this past week, but the previous one. But like my dad was raised Catholic. We went to church when I was very young. We stopped going when I was like 2 or 3, from what
Mm.
I don't even remember. And then I got involved in some like youth group activities, and I was going through that. And the community is what. And also, I had like as an adolescent and as a teen, I had trouble fitting in.
Mm.
And so going to this place where I could kind of create this new, I could be who I wanted to be, and I wasn't being judged, and I was part of this, and I was really, really ingrained in it. But it didn't come with it never came with a belief. Like I tried, I bought into it. I went through, the Bible course and Bible classes. I got baptized at
Mm.
19 or 20 years old. And I had to take a real step back because I just asked myself the question one day. I said, when's the last time that I took anything that I heard in a Sunday sermon or anything, or I actually prayed and meant it? And I couldn't remember. And then I started looking for answers and reasons why. I said, well, let's start logically trying to figure this out. And I started doing some research, and I went down a rabbit hole, and it ended with me going like, yeah, I don't believe in any of this, and I don't know why anybody would. But I
Yeah.
used to be much more hardcore about it, like in my early 20s. Now, I mean, look, we've got guys in the community that are Christian and that are hardcore believers. I don't look at that as the most primary specific thing that I look for when I'm looking for a guy that's going to come in and help build a tribe and add value and things like that. It's lower on my priority list. Um, I would be 100% open if people ever wanted to call in, or if they wanted to do a show where we kind of did a back and forth. Like I'd be totally
Yeah.
open to do that. But often it's never really in good faith. It's always about, you're going to burn, you're going to this. It's difficult to have a nuanced conversation around it, is what I found.
Yeah. So my background story: my mom was always Greek Orthodox. She used to take us to church on Easter and Christmas, of course. Those are the two main holidays. You do the bread, the wine, light the candle, do the sermon sort of thing. My dad got wrapped up in the Jehovah's Witness stuff for a few years, and that caused a lot of conflict between my parents when I was a kid. And I also listened to his Watchtower, because he got the books, and he'd read you like the Watchtower, whatever the hell it was called. And they don't knock on doors anymore, but they used to knock on doors a lot back then when I was younger. It seemed like almost once or twice a month they would come around knocking on doors. And of course, my dad let him in at some point and listened to the whole pitch and fell for it, and used to go to the Kingdom Hall. And he used to actually bribe me. I remember he used to be like, if you come, I'll take you to McDonald's, or I'll let you drive the car in the parking lot. And I was like 9 or 10 years old, so I'd sit on his lap and I'd like steer the car around the parking lot afterwards. Like that was my prize for sitting there patiently in nice clothing, listening to them, tell the stories. But I think that went away within a few years, because my dad just realized it's not worth fighting in the marriage over religion if there's a huge disagreement in it. Anyway, I never saw a lot of consistency with the narrative. I never saw, one of the things that always sort of caused conflict in my thinking around it was like, how are there so many different religions and gods, and they're all the right one? And throughout history, a lot of conflict and wars would erupt over the differences in opinions when it comes to religious beliefs about whose God is the right God, sort of thing. I'm not anti-religion. I'm not pro-religion. I don't subscribe to any religion. I'm probably more agnostic more than anything. I think when it comes to the notion of, as far as evidence, if you do your research and you start to ask some questions like why, and why do they say that, and why do they say that, and why do they say that, and you pay attention to a lot of what the really smart guys in the space are contributing as far as their body of work and research, as far as historical events like the Younger Dryas event, the Ice Ages, and the things that sort of correlate with things like the story of Moses and Mount Ararat, and like all of these biblical stories, like the burning bush stories and things like that. And as it sort of connects to historical use of even things like psychedelics and how they sort of tie into all of this. There's a lot more questions about what's real than what's wrong. And then there's also the other questions too around how did the human brain, like the sapient brain, double in size in such a short period of time when all the other primates made almost insignificant changes? There's also the notion where they've talked about there's been some sort of interference in the human genome at a certain time in history where it became dramatically more advanced than the other upright sort of hominids, like primate, hominids, where sapien just became that much more advanced. And maybe there was a god that altered the gene. Maybe there was an alien. I don't fucking know. But there's a lot of questions out there that force you to stare at certain things and be like, well, that's really interesting. So I hope people get what they're looking for out of religion. I didn't. I don't need anybody to save me. There's no higher power than myself when it comes to getting the results that I want out of life. Anytime that I've, when I was younger and I thought that there was, something up there that you had to talk to or pray to, I never got answers. I never, I was never heard, sort of thing. So I hope the people that subscribe to organized religion are getting what they want out of it and they see the benefit out of it. But if there's something in a church, a sermon, a book, a narrative, whatever it happens to be that conflicts with the reality of the world and the way that men and women operate between themselves, I'm always going to believe the behavior, right? So that's just my take on it. You do what you please with it. Like you said earlier, we had this conversation privately with the guys, in the community, even at the general's chair, and there's quite a few guys that are religious.
Yeah.
That's fine. Some of them go to church on a regular basis. That's fine. But if we're together at a retreat and there's a church in town, you're like, yo, I'm going to church, Rich, you want to come? I'm like, bro, have fun. I'll see you when you get back, sort of thing. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, it's always a touchy subject. I mean, you're taking something that people hold so near and dear that it's a huge part of their life. And it's something that is, again, like most people are not open to having their beliefs questioned. I think that scares a lot of people. I think it scares people to have to truly look at and examine the veracity of what you say you believe and not just say it's because I was raised or I have faith or anything like that. If you are a person who is concerned with and wants to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible, then I think that's a pretty noble pursuit. But I think it starts with looking within and trying to actually figure out what is true and what's not true. I care about what's true. I care about what's not true.
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot of, patience for things that are just like,
There's also this guy over here too. You ever see this guy online?
Joel? Oh yeah.
Osteen?
This guy got more money than he knows what to do with.
Like guys like this, and that take religion for a ride to extort money from people that are very persuadable, that will believe any story or lie that guys like this tell. I mean, you get what you deserve, right? And it's like, that's one of the problems that I've got with it all. It's like, why is there no consistency within the club as far as the narrative? It's like, well, that's not real Christianity, or that's not what the Bible says. That's not what the Old Testament says, or the New Testament says, or that scripture says, or that. It's like, complicate life, justify why, sort of thing. Like if you're going to call yourself a club, then there should be consistency. There shouldn't be. The other thing that's interesting too is Christianity, today, and I had this conversation with Chase, the guy that's the co-host on the Whatever podcast, the religious guy on my show. It was a couple months ago because he did a live space on, the Christ pill. And there's a lot of muting and a lot of censoring of biblical scripture, like the original stuff. From what I understand, it's like, a woman needs to submit, obey, in a marriage. And a lot of the times the churches will like take that out of marriage vows now. So if there's a ceremony being held, they take out the, to love and to obey, right? Like they'll take out like the obey part of the, the statements that are being made in front of family before they get married. So there's just too much stuff going on there where it's like, okay, guys, I'm glad that you've got that. And it's good, it's good to have a a tribe. It's good to have a community. It's good to have like a like-mindedness in a certain area. But there's just too many holes in it, man. There's just too many weird
Well, it's like
inconsistencies.
cafeteria Christianity. It's picking and choosing the things
Right.
that sort of fit and
A la
support your
carte.
narrative. Yeah, and then discarding the other ones. And that's very easy to do for a lot of people because you can say, well, these are the things that are literal, and then, oh, these are allegorical, right? These are metaphors, and there's a ton of inconsistencies. It's like, look, if you're going to abide by the book and say this is the word, I mean, I don't even see how you can even say that. I mean, we don't know who wrote it. Like, nobody knows who actually wrote the text of the Bible, especially the four Gospels. They were not actually written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I mean, that's already been. I mean, that's like table stakes. They were written 50 years after the supposed death of Christ. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of inconsistencies, even with the resurrection and the crucifixion story itself. So, if you're going to take it and say this is what I believe, then you have to take it 100%. And there are people out there, respect to those people that just say, yeah, everything I believe, every single word. But those people, I think, are the minority. And I think even some Christians look at those people as kind of weird. They're just like,
Mhm.
wow, like, okay, there's definitely some things in there that are not, we don't subscribe to. I mean, there's arguments for and there's arguments for slavery in the Bible, for example. There's a lot of stuff in there that make a lot of people feel uncomfortable in the modern day, in the modern age. So they just discard those things. They just say, oh yeah, like we don't believe that stuff. We believe in like the feel good
Yeah,
stuff,
like
like, oh,
this
like
part
love
of
your
it's real,
neighbor and blah blah
but that
blah.
part of it's not real.
Right,
Right. Like
right.
there's a
So
part of it that I saw that somebody quoted one time. They sent to me on Twitter, and it was talking about tattoos, basically, or inking, the body, like marking the body, which translated and was made clearer later on in the scripture about tattooing. And it's like God would forbid it, but the entire churches now are embracing, women that one are not chaste. They're single moms with multiple kids from multiple different fathers, covered in tattoos. They're embracing them in there, and they're trying to shill them off to their congregation, saying like, here's some good women. You should wife them up and make an honest woman, out of these chicks that are again covered in tattoos that are not chaste, bringing some dude's kids from a prior marriage, and all of that stuff. All of those components are all prohibited based on the original scripture that I've seen. So it's like, what's it going to be, guys? Like if you can't police your own club and consistently embrace, I'm very consistent when it comes to certain things. Like you've
right,
seen me move guys out of our community because they don't follow the fucking rules,
right,
right? You're out, done. See you later, and they'll come knocking. Hey guys, can I come back? I made a mistake. No, fuck off, right?
beat it.
So that's just me, but I don't know. Like I don't want to beat on this one too long, man. What else we got to talk about?
Well, there's two other things that I saw this week that are particularly interesting. So there's the controversy. There's Planet Fitness controversy,
Oh,
and then
okay. So what happened with that?
so we can start there. So there was this Planet Fitness location. For those people that don't know, I'll give a little background on Planet Fitness. So they're a fitness franchise. They are probably the biggest in the country, if not the world. I don't know if they're global, but I think they're the biggest in the country by number of locations. Their whole model is based on low cost, low barrier to entry and a no judgment zone, a judgment free zone. So this is a gym where you're going to pay $10 a month. They've gone viral in the past for having pizza and bagels every Tuesdays for all the members, having Tootsie Rolls and stuff at the front desk. They
Is this a
have
story here?
this.
Planet Fitness stock plummets after woman's membership canceled for taking picture of man in woman's locker room shaving.
That's right. Yeah. So their whole shtick is all about inclusivity. But what they do is they keep out people that are serious lifters and that are serious about fitness. They don't have legitimate bench presses. They don't have squat racks. They have Smith machines and they have a ton of cardio equipment. Their
Okay,
dumbbells routinely don't go past 60 pounds. So if you're a serious guy looking for a serious workout on a regular
you're not
basis,
going to
it's
get it
not where
there.
you want to go. Now, they have so many locations. I know guys that are like, yeah, man, I can figure out a way to finagle a good workout once or twice, a month when I'm on the road. But Planet Fitness is essentially their whole model is we don't want people to use our gym. We don't want people to use our equipment. We just want you to pay $10 a month and never show up again. So
Okay,
essentially what happened is that, yes, to your point, there was a woman that took a picture of a transformer in the women's locker room that was shaving, reported it to the front desk, reported it to the franchise owner, and her membership was revoked for not being inclusive. And so now
Oh, this
What's
was not.
happening?
This was actually in Alaska too.
Yeah, this is actually not the first time this has happened, apparently, in this location. There's now a story coming out where there was one previously a year ago or so, where this woman walked in on a fully nude man in the woman's locker room. And apparently, this most recent story, it was not only this woman, but there was also a 12-year-old girl present in the Planet Fitness locker room as well. And so this woman's membership was revoked, and now there people are calling for a boycott of Planet Fitness, and the stock is going way, way, way down. So it's an unfortunate case for a lot of the franchisees out there who have no part of this. But the hope and what I think people are looking to see is that corporate will, enough of these franchise owners will make a push, and they'll push back on corporate to make some changes. But I mean, this is where you've got guys going into women's locker rooms, exposing themselves to women and children, and they are being, awarded in this situation.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll never accept or understand this woke inclusivity narrative. I was at a Five Guys burgers the other day, and Five Guys has like peanuts there, right?
Yeah.
So this homeless looking guy dressed as a woman walks in. He's wearing a woman's wig, a very bad one that is not convincing. He's wearing women's clothing that is very filthy and not very convincing. And he grabs two trays full of peanuts, he scoops them up, sits down, and starts slowly eating these peanuts. Doesn't go there to buy a burger or anything like that. Like, I'm there with my kid. And she spotted him first and was like, like this. I'm like, okay, do me a favor. Don't make any eye contact.
Yeah.
I'm leaning in. I'm like, stand on my left side when we walk out in case he tries to pull anything, right? Like, you got to be cognizant of like, we used to lock these people up. Okay. When I was a kid, I never saw this shit. I would never go to a McDonald's or a burger joint and I'd see some weird shit like that. Now and I don't live downtown Toronto. Okay. Like, I live suburbs. Okay. Now it's just regular. It's just regular sort of thing. And nobody does anything about it. Corporations are like, oh, we should be more inclusive. And then you get some dude in a woman's locker room shaving. Why? Like, why do we let this happen?
Yeah.
What is
Their
the
policy
point?
is the bathroom is open to whatever gender you identify with.
I mean,
It's all about just your identity. Whatever you say
this is
goes.
a slippery slope. This is a very, very slippery slope. This is not cool. Anyway, what else you got there, brother?
Well, the final thing is there's been some stuff going up in New York recently about squatters and
Oh
squatters'
yeah, the
rights.
squatter story.
Yeah. So if you want to pull that up, but there's this woman that I believe inherited a home through her parents' estate or something like that, or she was going through the works about putting it on the market or reselling it or something like that. And these two guys, she shows up one day and there's two guys in the house, like sleeping, that are now claiming to be tenants. She calls the cops. The cops show up. They start interviewing. They say they live there. They say they're tenants. And so she says, forget this, like gets them removed or they leave. So while they're gone, she changes the locks on her house. Cops come back and they arrest her because you're not allowed to alter the locks, change the locks, shut off utilities or anything like that for
On
people
your
that
own property that you
people
own.
that claim to
This
be
is the chick over
tenants.
here, right?
Yes. Yeah. If someone claims to be a tenant in your house in New York, they don't have to have paperwork. There's no proof. If they claim it, you cannot do anything to keep them from coming in. And then furthermore, what happens after 30 days in New York, you officially have squatters' rights. So by the time she calls the police, they file a bunch of reports. If 30 days pass, the police can no longer do anything, and you have to go through the court system and you go through the proper channels, so to speak, which on average take around 20 months to get solved. So you have people that can live in your house for nearly 2 years and not pay rent under New York law, essentially, and you have no recourse as a property owner.
So I can't play this in full on our cast because of YouTube, but Paul Joseph Watson did a video this week. It's titled "Seems Like a Nice Guy." So this dude over here, this guy over here is an influencer, and his TikTok handle is future trillionaires, future underscore trillionaires. So he's a Venezuelan migrant, and his entire TikTok account is essentially telling other migrants that are walking across the border or catching a flight, depending on how they're getting there. By the way, like they're getting into the U.S. They're often given cash. I'm told as much as $10,000 cash, a cell phone, and healthcare just for walking across the border. Again, they bring nothing to the table. They don't have any skills. They're not bringing, $500,000. They're not investing. They're not buying property. They're not starting up a business. They're walking across the border and getting free shit. This dude over here is, again, telling other migrants how to take advantage of the system, and he's yelling at the camera, calling for other guys to use the exact same like very, very deceptive and underhanded sort of behavior. They're talking about banning TikTok, like the U.S. government. They're talking about banning, but they're doing nothing to stop this serious situation of an invasion. We used to guard borders, right? Like we used to stop invaders from marching into your country. You'd have a military that would like guard and protect it. Now they're flying them in, or they're just letting them walk across, and they're preventing states like Texas that are like, this is a problem for us because we're at the front line, right? Like this is where they're all walking across. It's causing major issues in our state. We need to do something about it. And the Supreme Court's basically saying, no, you can't do shit, right? And they're going back and forth with these battles all the time. So this is making America less attractive to me. People are always like, oh, you should come to the States, Rich. It's like, I like a lot about America. A lot of my friends are down there. There's a lot of states that I really enjoy being in. There's a lot of advantages to it, but shit like this turns me off. It's like, it forces me to look at other options when I finish my exit here, the next several years. But it's serious ass problem, man.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm every day I'm sort of surprised, and I continue to be baffled by just how much trust people still put in our government, and how much people still think the government is looking out for you as a citizen, and they have your best interests in mind, and they want you to succeed, and they care about you as a person, and just the language they use, and there's people that still didn't wake up from COVID. There's people that didn't wait. Now this is people ask me all the time, why'd you leave New York? And I'm like, look what's happening. Once COVID was over enough that I could actually leave my house without somebody, sticking a gun in my face, I essentially was like, I'm getting the hell out of here, because it's going to happen again. The other shoe's going to drop at some point. They already tried to bring COVID back a few months ago. It didn't stick, right? So now they go, okay, well, that didn't stick. Let's find a new slant. Anything else that we can get to control people, and we can, do something to get people displaced from their homes and make them more divided, make them more easily governed. Let's do that. And so here I am, almost 2 years later of being out of New York, saying, I told you so. And so, I mean, there's certainly places now that people should absolutely avoid. I don't know why anybody would live in a place that's so hostile to people that have ownership and that have property. I don't know why people would support a regime that clearly doesn't take care of its own citizens first. And they actually, there's another federal judge that just made a ruling that, I don't remember exactly what state. I want to say Washington, but I don't know for sure. But there was a judge that made a ruling that illegal immigrants are allowed to carry weapons and have guns, like illegals. So, and we're sitting here, and I know guys that have been waiting months.
Isn't it funny that they want to take guns away from law-abiding citizens that are exercising their rights, but give them to people they don't know anything about? They don't know if they're a fucking criminal or if they're legit or why they need them. They don't ask any fucking questions. Right.
They don't care. It's all about their PR. And I know guys that are like, yeah, I'm on 10 weeks from trying to get this rifle because it's on special order because the barrel is an inch too short or whatever it is, based on these frivolous regulations around guns. And so, but it's like, we'll just send everybody, if you come to the US, we'll give you $10,000 and a gun. Like, here you go. Welcome to the American dream. Yeah, it's absolutely.
And then there's
bananas.
that story about Ruby Ridge. Like, if you there's a documentary on YouTube that you can look up. I think it's a PBS documentary. It's about an hour long. After the show, go watch it. It's called Ruby Ridge, and it was this guy that was in the military that had it. You know, he came back from serving, and he just wanted to be left alone, and he built a cabin on top of this ridge. It was called Ruby Ridge. It was like right on the Canadian border, practically. I can't remember what state it was in, but it was in the mountains. And you know, he just wanted to be left alone. You know, he had his wife and his family, and they all wanted to be left alone. They had their dog, but the government wanted to use this guy. They wanted to manipulate him to infiltrate. I think it was a KKK cell or something like that, like some white supremacist cell. And they used a gun law to entrap him. They basically forced him to cut a shotgun barrel, I think 1 inch too short, which violated a certain law. And then, you know, so they showed up and they're like, hey, you know, we want to buy one of these things. You know, are you capable of cutting one? So they convinced him to do it, and they gave him money. He did it. And then they tried to incarcerate him over the situation when he didn't agree to comply with their requests to go and infiltrate this cell and get information for them. So they used this obscure gun law with a sawed-off shotgun that was 1 inch too short, and they basically killed his entire family, or half of his family. I think his wife was shot in the doorway of his house, holding his infant child. His son was shot and killed. His dog was shot and killed. So like half of his family was killed. I think the only thing that was left was his infant child and his daughter. Oh, and his best friend was shot and almost killed as well too. All because he cut a shotgun 1/2 inch too short because the government wanted to entrap him and manipulate him to extort information from the KKK. You guys can go look this shit up. Like, I'm not even, like, you can't even make this up. But now today, you know, people can just walk across the border and say, like, oh, here's some cash, here's a cell phone, here's some health care. Oh, and by the way, if you want a gun, go ahead, take one. Oh, and there's some squatters' rights, you know, laws, by the way, that fuck over the landlord. So just go live in a house if you feel like it and follow these steps, and you can stay there for free. what the dude, you cannot make these stories up. You cannot make these stories up. It's unreal, man.
It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel. It sounds like something that's completely made up, and it's all happening in real time right before our eyes. So yeah, I mean, I don't blame people that don't want to move here. I don't blame people that are looking for a safe place to live and raise children. I mean, that's why I came to a place like, you know, Florida, and that's why it's going to be very, very difficult for me to ever leave.
It's one of the better
Texas
states.
I mean, Texas is a good state, but again, you're talking about sharing the border, and you're talking about you're on the front lines essentially.
The problem with Texas is it's right on the border, one, and two.
Yeah.
Like the tax, you know, I looked this up. The income tax laws are good, but they have higher property tax and state tax laws on purchases to compensate for the lack of income
standard.
tax. Right?
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
But you've also got
like
a lot
Tennessee.
of, you know, people walking across the border. You don't know who any of these people are. You have no idea who they are.
Yeah, it's a shame the way this is happening, and it's just, you know, these loopholes in the law. People are just they're so afraid to, you know, stand up and say this is ridiculous. We need to fix these things. Yeah, it's a very interesting time.
Wasn't the Boston Tea Party, or that there was a revolt in the last 150 years or so? I mean, you know American history better than I do, because they slightly raised the taxes on tea, and they lost their fucking shit, and they did something about it back then. It's like, okay, they did something about that back then when they slightly raised the taxes on tea at that time. And now it's like people can just walk across the border, get given free shit, kill anybody they want, squat whenever they want. Like, come on, man. Really? This is where we are?
Yeah, it's what hundreds of years of pacification have done. It's what people believe in. Daddy government taking care of me, and you know, I watch the news, and I don't watch Fox News, but I watch CNBC and I watch CNN and all that stuff. All that's correct, and you know, they love me and they care about me and they take care of me as long as I just file my taxes and do what I'm supposed to do and vote for Joe Biden. Yeah, it's.
So property tax rates in Texas, you know, since this guy just mentioned it, are 7th highest in the U.S. as the average effective property tax in the Lone Star State is 1.60. So compare that to the average national rate, which is 0.99. The typical Texas homeowner pays through $3,797 annually in property. That's still nothing compared to what I pay. I pay way more than that. I'm probably paying close to the 1.6% rate here on my property, but Canada's expensive. It is what it is. Done almost an hour, man. You got anything else you want to cover real quick before we wrap up?
We didn't get much time on this. I haven't watched it yet, but I heard the interview between Elon Musk and Don Lemon was pretty good.
I haven't watched it.
I haven't seen it either.
We should probably watch it before we comment on it.
Probably should, yeah. But I mean, the clips that I've seen is just, Elon's that guy, man. Elon's just the guy
like Elon doesn't like me because I'm black and gay or something.
Yeah, something like that. Or he's just like talking about, oh, we need to, handle racism. Elon's just like, I think we need to move on. I think there are more pressing issues that we need to deal with than like worrying about people calling each other names and things like that.
Yeah.
No, this has been, yeah. I mean, I don't know. This is something I would probably run by you. I don't know. We can talk about this off air, but I'm more than happy to have, open conversations with people that want to come in and talk about, Bible-ism, Christianity, that and things like that. Cause it's something that's just never going to go away and I don't mind it. So maybe.
Yeah. I've always been open to debate. I mean, I've said for years on the Unplugged Alpha podcast, it's like, the lines for call in are always open. Yeah. If you have a question, call in. If there's something that you disagree with that I've said and you have a better solution, call in. Let's talk about it. I never get anybody that calls in. So I don't care if you do it on the Unplugged Alpha, or if you want to message one of us to have a debate about something that we've talked about on a general show between me and Moff. We can do it that way. It's entirely up to you. Got a super chat here from Andy. Thank you, sir. He says, I traveled and explored many U.S. large cities and small coast to coast. Post-industrial decay is everywhere. It feels like a apocalyptic video game, Last of Us. YouTube won't show me sponsor button. I don't know what that means, the sponsor button. But, if you're talking about sponsoring a video like I opened with at the start of the show, you just have to go to my website at richcooper.ca and you can fill out the form and sponsor video. But, I'm doing a rally down in the States in a couple weeks. So we do the Appalachian Mountains and like Blue Ridge Parkway, Tail of the Dragon, like, places like that. You see a lot of nice little towns and you also see a lot of shitholes, like real fall apart shitholes that are just in decay. And it is what it is, man. It's just a matter of priorities. The government has clearly shown to me that things like ESG, DEI, sending money to proxy wars, billions, not just money, but billions of dollars to proxy wars, and letting people walk across the border seem to be their priorities. Inclusivity, wokeness, funding proxy wars, letting in people that they have no idea about. Like most people, when they immigrate to North America, to Canada, the States in the past, had to go through due process, right? Like you had to prove that you had a useful skill. You had to prove that you had money to buy real estate and raise a family and buy a car. Now they just give you free shit. Times are really changing very, very quickly, and it's not for the best. So it is what it is. Anyway, I think we'll wrap up on that note. We got a ladies' night tomorrow night, 8 p.m. You got some gals lined up for us?
Yes, I do.
All right, so you can check that out. Those are always interesting conversations. Show up live for those if you guys, have a question you want us to pose a lady. Wednesday at noon is Unplug Alpha. Thursday is Moffice Hours. Real quick, how did people take the whole video on, what the hell is his name? Hormozy, Alex, talking about how he would find his Layla again.
Yeah, I haven't got as many comments on as I thought. It's got like about 2,000 views. A couple of people have agreed. I think the overall sentiment is like, yeah, man, this guy knows how to build $100 million business, but doesn't mean he knows anything about, relationships and female nature. Yeah. Like my biggest takeaways is that he's managing his PR, right? He walks in tiptoes around certain concepts. He switches out words. He made a specific comment about, women's status is highest in their 20s and 30s, when I know he means their attractiveness and their value on the sexual marketplace, right? But he uses like status, like softer language, and there's some tiptoe language he does. So he's good at what he does for sure. But
he's figured out the brand of me and blowing himself up. He's done real well at that. And
basically.
He's got some good books too. Like all of his like $100 million offers, $100 million leads, they're all good books. I mean, I've listened to them all. If you're an entrepreneur, you're looking to start your own business, they're definitely, it's the cheapest way to get knowledge, man. Just go and listen to the book. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wrap up on that note. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Leave a comment, do all the stuff for the algorithm, and we'll see you on Monday night for Ladies Night episode. Peace out.